Good morning. Good morning. Isn't it a beautiful day out there? Yes. Don't you all want to be out there? Yes. Of course, God is everywhere. So, and this is the place that we set aside for us to come together on a regular basis to worship God. Are we ready? Yes. Let's worship our God who is good and who is everywhere.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing? Good. I'm glad to see you. I hope that you're glad to be here the way I am this morning. I'm full of joy and thankfulness for this church and this place to come to study, to worship, and to show each other how much we love them. Nancy said, "Is there something going on this morning?" I said, "I don't think so." She said, "Well, there seems to be a few more people here than usual this early." Now, this is what happens. We always have some latecomers, but we're glad everybody's here. It's good to see our old familiar friends' faces, and it's good to see some faces out there that we haven't seen much. Our neighbors back here. We have Eileen back this morning. Yay, she's back here. It's great to see her. Elizabeth is back this morning. It's wonderful to see her. Dorothy's back this morning. It's great to see her. And so we're just delighted that everyone's here and hope that you are ready to enjoy with us this worship service. We do have a couple of announcements. One is today is our last item to donate or to collect for the hygiene kits, and our next Sunday, and it would be a $2 donation to cover the cost of one tube of toothpaste. Now, I guess the reason they're asking for donations is because they are very specific about the kind of toothpaste they can do. Is that right, Sandy?
I think, and I'm discussing this, I think the toothpaste thing is there must be an expiration on toothpaste. Because these items are packed and probably stay packed until they get distributed. So they must add the toothpaste at the last moment before they give these to people. So I think that's why they're, instead of letting us buy a tube of toothpaste, they're asking for a $2 donation to pay for a tube of toothpaste. I believe that's.
Hey, y'all, go home and check your toothpaste tube and make sure it's not expired. That might be an issue. We want to remind everyone that we will have a special patriotic service next Sunday. We hope you all will be here for that. And also keep in mind that homecoming is coming up the first Sunday in August. Be sure to be inviting people, and let's make this one of our greatest homecoming services ever. That will be coming up the first Sunday in August. I do have a couple of announcements. There's a children's ministry announcement there, and I want you to see that. And then I also want to say that she's my sister, but it is her birthday. Happy birthday to Martha. I don't know how old she is. I have to ask her that. And then we want to say happy anniversary to Pio and Pio. How many years? How many years?
Don't say too many.
34. Is that right, Pio? 34 years. And I think Martha has something she'd like to say. Again. You get the spotlight.
I announced a few weeks ago that we could ask Keel to come back as our pastor this year, but it would not be official until after annual conference. It's official.
I want to make the editorial correction. I'm stuck. No, you're stuck. No, you're stuck.
He starts, this is his official first day of his third year, so. We want to say welcome back.
Thank you. It will be a little blessing for me to serve this church, despite my shortcomings. You all embrace the class really well, so thank you.
And we thank you for embracing us in spite of our shortcomings. At this time, let's rise and greet each other and show the love that we have for each other here at Hot Springs.
Y'all got to come here every once in a while.
Lift your voices this morning to receive glory, glory and honor, glory and honor and power. For thou hast created, hast all things created, thou hast created all things. And for thy pleasure they are created, for thou art worthy, O Lord. Let's sing that verse one more time. Thou art worthy, thou art worthy, thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory, glory and honor, glory and honor and power. For thou hast created, hast all things created, thou hast created all things. And for thy pleasure they are created, for thou art worthy, O Lord. Would you pray with me? Lord, your word gives us the opportunity to give praise back to you. For in Revelation we read that thou art worthy and that you have created all things. And as your beings, Lord, your creation, you require of us to give praise to you. Let us never falter. Let us never falter on that, Lord. Let us always have thanksgiving and praise in our hearts, regardless of our circumstances. And we just give you praise for all that you're going to impart to us this morning through this hour. I pray that the music and the message from our pastor and the word from the Bible this morning through our liturgist will all speak to our hearts, so that when we leave this place, we are just filled to overflowing. And we give you all the praise for it, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
By the way, we do have a Revelation study going on during the Sunday school hour starting at 9:45. Now, if you want to come and you have to come, don't worry, because the teacher's really slow. So you're not that far behind. So come on and join us. Helen Smith had something she wanted to say, and I failed to see her hand. Helen?
Yes, I just want to say thank you for the cards and prayers for my sister. She got out of volunteer to go home for home personal care, so that was a good thing. And the doctor said my voice will be better in about 2 weeks if I don't talk. I said, well, what's the other word?
Yeah. She said, I know I can't abide by that one, so what else can I do?
Thanks everybody for your prayers.
Thank you, Helen. So the phrase, see how they love, doesn't that ring true with us this morning? At this time, let's continue in our worship with our call to worship that is printed in your bulletin. It is also projected on the screen. Please respond as appropriate. Come, let us worship the Lord our God, whose love quenches our thirst. Let us praise God, who is with us always.
We seek the one who will not desert us.
Let us open our hearts to God, who calls us by name.
We come seeking a reconciled relationship with God.
Amen.
As we continue our time of praise this morning, Fourth Sunday is a celebration of praise, and we will invite you to sing with us this morning. Praise team or worship leader will sing the first part, first phrase, and you echo. I will worship. I will worship with all of my heart. With all of my heart. I will praise you. I will praise you with all of my strength. All of my strength. I will seek you. I will seek you all of my days. All of my days. I will follow all of your ways. All of your ways. I will give you all my worship. I will give you all my praise. You alone I long to worship. You alone are worthy of my praise. I will bow down and hail you as King. I will serve you. I will serve you everything. Give you everything. I will lift up. I will lift up my eyes to your throne. My eyes to your throne. I will trust you. I will trust you. Trust you alone. Trust in you alone. I will give you all my worship. I will give you all my praise. You alone I long to worship. You alone are worthy of my praise. I will give you all give you all my praise. You alone I long to worship. You alone are worthy of my praise. You alone are worthy of my praise. You alone are worthy of my praise. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, love. Our God is an awesome God. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. Our God is an awesome God. Our God is an awesome God. Our God is an awesome God. Can we lift up a sacrifice of praise for our awesome God this morning?
At this time, we come to this point in our service when we speak about what we believe as Christians. We will be using the Apostles' Creed. It's found on page 881 in your hymnal. It will also be projected on the screen. Let us join together in this historic confession of the Christian faith. I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, dead, and buried. The third day he rose from the dead. He ascended into heaven, and sitteth at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From thence he shall come to judge the quick and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and the life everlasting. Amen. Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Ghost, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Amen. You may be seated. If the ushers would please come forward. It's now time to give back to God a portion of all the blessings that He has given us. Let us pray. Dear God, we do come with joy and thanksgiving this morning. We come as your people, knowing that if it weren't for you, we would be in entirely different situations than we are this morning. We give you thanks for your power, for your glory, and for your might. Please take these givings that are being offered back to you today, help them to be used for the coming of your kingdom here on earth. In Jesus' name we pray.
Is it right? You are having a moment? Yes. Okay.
Good morning, children. How are you this morning? I have a question for you. Besides asking you how are you, what has God done for you? Is it a hard question? Can you lie? Provide everything that we need? Okay. God has done many things for us, hasn't He? Right. Other than the things that God has done for us, what do you think God wants to do? Okay. Well, let's hear the story of the Bible today when we share with our adults. Jesus and the disciple had a really tiresome night because it was a storm. And then, of course, disciples was scared and what Jesus comes to storm. And after that incident, it was a miracle. They came to a place called Genesis. And then there they heard a terrible sound, a shriek. This man just came out of the graveyard, naked, and he had scars all over it, and bloody scars everywhere. And of course, he was 32. And the Bible says that he was demon possessed. So demons were asking Jesus, they knew who Jesus was, what do you want with us? Jesus didn't say anything, but the demons knew they were coming. So demons asked Jesus, do not send us to the Hades. It's the fire pit. Oh, please don't. And then the Bible says there was swine, pigs, many pigs were in the field. And the demons asked Jesus, could you let us go to the pig? So Jesus permitted them. So the demons all went into pigs, and guess what happened to the pigs? They just ran up all the way to the cliff, and then they jumped from the cliff, and then they drowned. The Bible does not explain, but something happened. But the important thing is the man who was possessed with the demon. Remember, he was naked and he had a scar all over. And he was not right in mind. He was out of mind, right? He was sick, basically, right? But Jesus healed him. Okay? You see, he was so uncontrollable that people even put chains on him. And people wouldn't go near him because he was so scared. And then if maybe he was chained, break the chain because of the demonic power. But Jesus cured him. And but the people who were keeping the swine or the pigs went, and there was flies that went and told their owners what happened. And the people all came back and asked Jesus to leave. Why would you do that? Why would the people ask Jesus to leave? They should be thankful, right? And because they lost pig, right? Then you want to have an economic loss, right? They probably have a big feast or they could sell those pigs to make money, right? But anyway, Jesus basically left the town, but this man who had been possessed, now he's healed, right? And then he asked Jesus, can I follow you? Guess what? Jesus said, no, do not follow me. Go tell what God has done for you. Tell your family, tell the people what God has done for you. That's the lesson for us today. You just shared with us what God has done for you, right? We don't just keep it to ourselves. We don't just keep it to ourselves. We need to share others because there are many people who still do not know Christ, do not know God. We need to tell them how much God loves them, how much God cares for them, and how much God keep you alive or provide the things that we need, right? So we need to tell the others, tell your friends. That's what God wants us to do. Whatever He's done for us. Okay? All right, don't keep it to ourselves. Let us pray. Dear gracious and loving God, we give you thanks for being our God who provides everything for us and we need. Who does so many wonderful things for us. Don't let us just keep it to ourselves, but help us to share with others, especially those who do not know your God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
You may go to children's church. As we enter into a time of prayer this morning, our song of reflection is called Rescue. I ask you to reflect on just how God has rescued you throughout your life and how you might need Him to rescue you now. We're going to put the words on the screen just so that you can follow along and maybe understand the meaning of the song a little bit better. I know there are many ways that each of us in our daily lives need Jesus to come to our rescue, but the greatest rescue from Him is salvation. So if you need Him in your life, if you don't know His salvation, oh, you need it in your life. I hope that this song will minister to you. You are the source of life, and I can't be left behind. No one else will do. I will take hold. I need you, Jesus, to come to my rescue. Where else can I go? There's no other name by which I am saved. Capture me with grace. I will follow you. You are the source of life, and I can't be left behind. No one else will do. I will take hold of you. I need you, Jesus, to come to my rescue. Where else can I go? There's no other name by which I am saved. Capture me with grace, and I need you, Jesus, to come to my rescue. Where else can I go? There's no other name by which I am saved. Capture me with grace. I will follow you. I will follow you. I will follow you. This world has nothing for me. I will follow you. This world has nothing for as you. Where else can I go? There's no other name by which I am saved. Capture me with grace. Capture me with grace. Capture me with grace. I will follow you. I will follow you. I will follow you. Good morning. I got a call this morning really early. It told me that a cousin was going into surgery to have her to receive a liver transplant. And the surgery is scheduled at 11, so they have asked us to pray for her surgery, for her doctors, for the family. I know that each of you has probably had a similar situation where you've been hopeful that someone is going to be healed or have surgery that will take care of those issues that are threatening their life. What I'd like for y'all to do this morning as we pray, as I pray for us, would you please take that person that you feel, or that family that you really feel needs your prayers at this moment, and hold them in your heart and lift them up to God. And as we pray these words, let's let God minister to them through our prayers. Let us pray. Loving and ever-present God, we believe that your grace is sufficient for all things. Comfort us anew by your presence. Allow that in our weakness we may be made strong. In our grief, consoled, and in our ignorance, wise. Protect and guide us that we may know the way to take, and that each crossroad of life we may see the right path to choose. Safeguard us by your power, uphold us by your kindness, and warm us by your love. By your divine grace, help us to do what is right, to act courageously, to love our neighbors, to forgive our enemies. By your grace, bless us through Jesus Christ, our Lord, who taught us to pray these words. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever.
Today's scripture is taken from Luke chapter 8, verses 26 through 39. Now, this scripture might be what you would call a cliffhanger. Then they arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As he stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven into the wild. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legions," for many demons had entered him. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. Now there on the hillside, a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherds saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came out to see what had happened, and when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him. But Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. This is the word of God for God's people.
Thanks be to God.
Seated on the throne, mountains bow down, every ocean roars to the Lord of hosts. Praise Adonai, from the rising of the sun to the end of every day. Praise Adonai. All the nations of the earth, all the angels and the saints sing praise. Who is like him, the Lion and the Lamb, seated on the throne? Mountains bow down, every ocean roars to the Lord of hosts. Praise Adonai, from the rising of the sun to the end of every day. Praise Adonai. All the nations of the earth, all the angels and the saints sing praise Adonai. From the rising of the sun to the end of every day, praise Adonai. All the nations of the earth, all the angels and the saints sing praise. Sing praise.
And praise.
Let us pray. Loving God, we thank you for your presence among us. Here we are in your presence, ready to hear your words. So God, speak to us, so that your word will instill our hearts for us to live accordingly, to bring glory to you through whatever we do. Pour out your Spirit upon us as we listen and as I deliver your words to your children. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, you heard the question that I asked children, right? So that's the same question I'm asking you. What has God done for you? I'm sure we'll all agree God has done so many things for us, right? So are we just keeping to ourselves or are we sharing? We're going to have to answer that right now. Of course, when Jesus lived on the earth, he performed many miracles, as we know. But this miracle story that we read is a story with some strange twist to it. Let me ask you another question. Do you think that Jesus would have granted the request of the evil ones? Of course, we all read the story and did, right? In our right mind, we would think that Jesus would have denied the request of demons and unbelievers and grant the request of a follower who wants to really follow Jesus. But Jesus didn't. As we can see from the passage for today, Jesus grants the asking of the demons. He agrees to the petition of a group of unbelievers, the pagans. And then he denies the request of a man who wanted to follow him because Jesus had transformed his life. It seems odd, doesn't it? Why did Jesus act such way? I believe that Jesus granted the request of the demons that he does not send them out of the region and into the abyss because the final judgment of Satan and his forces is yet to come. The time is coming when they will be cast into the lake of fire. But for now, we are engaged in a spiritual battle against these forces of evil. Remember the sermon series on what? Putting on the armor of God? Yes, we are in a spiritual battle. We don't know for certain what happened to the demons after the pigs were drowned, but I think they were free then to go trouble someone else because the final day hasn't yet come. The water did not harm the demons, I don't think. I also believe that Jesus granted the request of the local people to leave their region, their village, because his main mission at the time was to the Jews. And because he will not force himself upon those who harden their hearts against him, especially after they had seen evidence of his mighty power. And I believe that Jesus denied the request of the former demoniac to follow him because his primary mission at that time was to the Jews, and even though these Gentiles' hearts were opposed to him, he knew that some Gentiles, or some pagans, would hear and respond. And so, Jesus told the man, return to your house and describe what great things God has done for you. So the lesson for us from this miracle story is that all of us who have experienced Jesus' transforming power should tell others what God has done for us. But that raises two critical questions that we must ask ourselves. First, to what extent are we experiencing the transforming power of Jesus Christ? What is there in our life that is explainable only by the spiritual power of Jesus Christ? It may not be as instantaneous and dramatic as the transformation of the demoniac in this miracle story. But even so, there ought to be some obvious changes due to our experience with Jesus Christ. My brothers told my wife before I met Christ, if I continued on, I could have killed a few people. I don't know why. Maybe I was so bad to them. But I kind of, sometimes when I get really angry, The devil tells me, you could kill somebody by looking in my eyes. I look innocent. Oh, there you go. Secondly, to what extent are we proclaiming the transforming power of Jesus Christ? Do we have a holy disease, as somebody might call it? As a disease that mainly affects many of us, where we surround ourselves with the saints, holding hands and sharing precious verses, but we don't usually venture out among the unbelievers. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about myself. When I became a Christian, gradually I find out that I don't have many Christian friends because I hung around with the Christian friends. And I don't really intentionally really go out to the Christian friends that I associated with before. So I must have suffer from the disease even as a pastor. Holy huddle disease. Our passage plainly shows that Jesus has the spiritual power to transform lives. It is interesting to compare this miracle with the one that immediately happened before the coming of the storm. In that miracle, we see Jesus' power over nature, right? Here, we see his power over the supernatural. In the previous one, we see Jesus' ability to control the wild sea. Here we see Jesus' ability to control a wild man. In the previous one, we see Jesus giving peace in a storm. Here, Jesus gives peace in a soul. Try to imagine or picture the scene. It was either at night or very early in the morning when Jesus and the disciples arrived on the other side of the lake after the storm. As they were stepping out on the beach, they hear a terrifying shriek. They look up to see this naked wild man running told them the man's naked body was covered with scars and bloody wounds in some places, as the Gospel of Mark tells. His uncut hair and untrimmed beard were matted and tangled. He had a wild, frantic look in his eyes. So probably them could have said, if she saw his eyes, would know that good person to kill me. Like when she saw my eyes when I get so angry, you could kill somebody. But I can also add his body odor. Just imagine that. Luke does not mention what the disciples did, but I can imagine them scrambling back into the boat or looking for rocks or sticks to defend themselves. How could they have done that? Probably. But Jesus stepped forward, spoke the word to the demons, and the demoniac was a different man. We need to understand that Jesus' power is necessary for transformation. You see, the gospel is the power of God regarding the salvation. Jesus didn't use some clever method to convince a demoniac to decide to accept him. The demoniac didn't decide to turn over a new leaf and try harder this time. He didn't sign up for a 12-step group to overcome his condition. The gospel is nothing less than the mighty power of God conveying new life to a previously dead sinner. If God does not change the heart, there is no lasting change. The human attempt to deal with this demoniac had been to bind him with the chains, but it didn't work, right? Human solutions to problems that are spiritual matter ultimately will fail. Margaret Sangster, the social worker, told about seeing a small boy in an urban ghetto sitting on the stairs of a tenement. The youngster had been hit by a car several months before, but his parents, fresh from Appalachia, neglected to get him proper medical attention. Although not part of her caseload, she took the boy to an orthopedist and learned that through an involved series of operations, the child's body could be made normal again. She bypassed the bureaucratic red tape, raised funds, and set the process of cure in motion. 2 years later, the boy came to her office. To her astonishment, he walked in without clutches. And to show the completeness of his recovery, he turned a cartwheel for her. The two embraced. And when the boy left, Margaret reported that a warm glow went through the entire office. She said to herself, if I never accomplish anything else in my life, at least here is a young man to whom I can point where I have made a real difference. At that point, she paused in her presentation and asked, this was all several years ago now. Where do you think that boy is today? But let me ask you, where do you think that boy is today? Cutting the emotion of that moment, several made the suggestion. A school teacher? Physician? Or perhaps a social worker? What else do you want to add? Preacher? Like me? Doctor? Yeah, physician, yeah. There was a long pause. And with even more profound emotion, Margaret Sangster said, no, he's in prison for one of the foulest crimes a human being can commit. Then she said, I was instrumental in teaching him how to walk again. But there was no one to teach him where to walk. Man's effort falls short because all who need the transformation are in Satan's domain. This story reveals that there are two types of people in Satan's domain who need the transforming power of Jesus Christ. There are those who are evidently in Satan's domain, such as this demoniac in our passage. These people make us shudder and draw back from them, but their very appearance, they look evil. But there is a second type of people in this story who are just as much in Satan's domain and who need the same transforming power of Jesus Christ. But we might be inclined to overlook them. They are not noticeable, but disguised. I'm talking about the people of that area who flocked out to see what had happened to the demoniac. Outwardly, they were decent, respectable citizens. There are three clues that these people were in Satan's domain just as much as the demoniac was. First, the demons were at home in their region. They didn't want to be sent out of the country. Second, these people were more concerned about the loss of their swine than they were about the healing of this man. Sure, the demoniac had been a nuisance to them. He was so violent that no one could go near where he was. But if his healing meant the loss of their swine, forget it. Third, they begged Jesus to leave. What a terrible request. They had to fear the demoniac. But they were more frightened about Jesus. Jesus was a threat to them, and they did not want him to get too close. These people are like the man, Harry Ironside, who's the famous preacher. You all know probably heard about him. Talked to one night after he preached. He asked the man if he was saved, and the man said, no. But he would like to be. So Ironside asked him, do you realize that you're a sinner? Yes, the man quickly replied. But you know what? I am not what you would call a bad sinner. In fact, I had to say, I'm a rather good one. So there's a bad sinner, there's a good sinner, okay? There are many people like that man. They are in Satan's domain of darkness, but they are decent folks. That's right, they are decent folks. They've never committed a felony. They love their spouses and their children. They may even go to church and believe in God, but they don't want Jesus getting too close for comfort. If a preacher like me brings up the matter of a sin that step on your toes or their toes, they get real nervous and put up their defense. They are just as much in Satan's domain as the visible sinners, but outwardly they look more respectable. All people, apart from Jesus Christ, are in one category or the other. Apostle Paul says, for he delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son. In him we have a redemption, the forgiveness of the sins. Yes, because we are all saved by the grace of Jesus Christ, right? So before we are saved, we are all in the domain of sin. You agree? But because we have been redeemed, because we have been saved, we are no longer in that domain. The us include the religious Paul as well as the formerly pagan Gentiles. Every person without Christ is in Satan's domain and needs Jesus' mighty power to deliver him or her. Not too difficult for Jesus to transform. But disguise the sinners are often more difficult than the obvious ones. We look at a story like this and say, wow, if demonic can be transformed, then there is hope for anybody. Yes, there's even hope for the respectable sinners. It takes the same saving power of Jesus Christ to transform them as it does to transform the demonic. But they are often the more difficult cases because they don't see their great need. But as someone said, Christianity is not a matter of dressing up a pig in a nice suit of a good works. It's a matter of God changing the nature of the pig. Right? If we experience God's transforming power that we got to express it is at this point that many of us fail, including myself. How do we communicate the changes or the transformation Christ has made and is making in our lives? There are many ways to proclaiming the message that every one of us can do, but I want to focus on just one thing for now. We can exhibit a transformed life. People knew this guy as a naked, wild, violent maniac. But when they went out to see him, he was sitting down, clothed, and in his right mind. There was an obvious change. Maybe you are thinking, I was naked. Wow, a violent maniac before I came to Christ. I was raised in the church. I was born into the Christian family. I trusted him as a child. How can I show people that Christ has made a difference in my life? Is that the right question? Our attitude should show people that we are Christians. Do we have a cheerful and thankful heart? Even in difficult times? Do we have a cheerful and thankful heart even in difficult times? Rather than asking, how long, oh God? It is okay. Yes, but despite that, do we still have that cheerful and thankful heart? Now I can see that from somebody. You probably know that person. Despite the situation, they do have a thankful heart. They do show their cheerful hearts. Or do we grumble and complain? Paul says that if we do all things without grumbling or disputing, we show ourselves as lights in this crooked and perverse world. What about our words? Do we encourage and build others up? Or do we tear them down? Do we use foul language? Or do we have to carry them out to us all the time because we use foul language? Or is our speech pure? And what about our behaviors? Are we self-centered? Or are we always thinking about others and how we can serve them? Do we live for the same values and goals the world lives for? Do we blend in with the world, or do we stand out as distinct, as different? If we walk in reality with Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior every day, our life will be a witness. Don't you agree? To what extent are we experiencing the transforming power of Christ? Has Jesus Christ changed our life through His gracious gift of salvation? Is He continuing to change it as we walk with Him? To what extent are we proclaiming the transforming power of Jesus Christ? Are we looking for opportunities with those we know to tell them of the great things God has done for us and of the great things He will do for them if they will come to Jesus just as they are? So what is it? Or what are those that God has done for us? So what is it? Go back to the same question that I asked our children. What has God done for us? What has God done for us in our daily lives? May God empower us to share that good things that God has done for us with the others around us. Because Spirit of God can give us the power to do so, right? That's what Jesus wants us to do. Share with others what God has done for us. Amen? Let us pray. Our gracious and loving God, indeed you have done so many things for us. Your grace is abound. But God, don't just let us keep that to ourselves, but help us to share with others, those who still do not know you. Oh God, empower us by your Spirit to share with others what you have done for us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Our song of invitation is come just as you are. If you need this transforming power of Jesus in your life, come just as you are. It's an invitation to receive Him.
The altars are open. And for those of you who want to join our church, altars are always open. And we welcome you in the name of Jesus Christ, who has the transforming power.
Please stand. Come just as you are. Hear the Spirit call. Come just as you are. Come and see. Come receive. Come and live forever. Life everlasting and strength for today. Taste the living water and never thirst again. Hear the Spirit call. Come just as you are. Come and see, come receive, come and live forever. Life everlasting and strength for today. Taste the living water and never thirst again. Come just as you are. Hear the Spirit call. Come just as you are. Come and see, come receive, come and live forevermore.
Jesus Christ, who had transformed our lives, wants us to share what God has done for us with others. So as we go to the place that God has placed us, may God empower us to do so. As we do it so, the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all. Amen.